Hello lords and ladies! My name is Archaic King and this is Cartoon Hangout, a special series all about cartoons. Today I'm reviewing Miraculous Ladybug Episode 2, Mr. Pigeon. If you thought the Bubbler was a lame villain, then make way for a pigeon themed one. That's not a criticism, but just an amusing observation of mine. Going into the show, I never realized how silly it would end up being, and I'll admit I was a little bit nervous after seeing episode 1. It was a great episode, but I wondered just how far the show would go in its silliness. And although episode 2, it's certainly silly, the show is turning out great in my personal opinion. This past Sunday's episode saw Ladybug and Cat Noir face off against a not-so-evil-sounding Mr. Pigeon, a poor man banned from parks for feeding the pigeons. You can't help but feel sorry for these characters who Hawkmoth evilizes, which still sounds pretty lame, but that's most likely the intent. None of these characters are truly bad people, they've just been taken advantage of. However, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, Mr. Pigeon is somewhat of a lame villain, not just in his name, but the fact that other than controlling pigeons and having them form crazy shapes like airplanes, he doesn't seem to have the power of flight. I'm sure there was a reason for that absent power, probably so he could stand on top of pigeons and look silly. On the flip side, this episode's side plot revolved around a design contest, which introduces us to Marinette's interest in fashion designing.
Derby hat, derby hat, derby hat, derby hat! I don't have any derby hat designs!
Now, it could probably come off a little cliche of an interest, given that they live in France and Marinette being a girl, but it does add some more character depth to our main protagonist. Plus, it was also fun seeing her butt heads with her rival Chloe. I do want to say, however, I'm hoping we get some more insight into Chloe, because as it stands, she's a pretty one-dimensional character. She's mean to Marinette for no other apparent reason than wanting Adrien all to herself. The character reminds me a little Sissy from Code Lyoko, but even that character ended up getting some depth. Of course, this is only episode 2, so this isn't really meant as a strike against the show, just me thinking about the future appearances of the character. Also, here's some trivia if you'd like. The characters Chloe and Sabrina were meant to be in a trio with the character Alex, who appeared in episode 1 but hasn't really been given much screen time yet, which was meant to be a reference to Sam, Chloe, and Alex from Totally Spies. I find that pretty awesome considering I mentioned in my first look at video the show was giving me strong Totally Spies vibes. Oh, and just to throw some more cool facts your way, not only is Chloe's color scheme, yellow and black, possibly meant to resemble a bee, as in she's the queen bee, but her last name, bourgeois, means of or characteristic of the middle class, typically with reference to its perceived materialistic values or conventional attitudes. Now that fits Chloe to a T. Now, much like my last review, I've managed to go almost the entire video without touching on Adrien much at all. Unlike episode 1, Adrien doesn't get much story time outside of his Cat Noir superhero persona. In this episode, he turns out to be allergic to feathers, proving to be a minor hindrance in his fight against Mr. Pigeon.
So much for the element of surprise.
What I find hilarious is that even when Marinette discovers that Adrien is allergic to the feather in her hat at the end of the episode, she still doesn't get suspicious. Probably because it's far too early in the series for that to happen, although it's still pretty ridiculous. Anyway, in the end, despite Chloe stealing her design, Marinette is able to prove that she owns the design. A small victory for our beloved heroine in her quest to get that leather-clad booty. Sorry, I had to say that. In the previous review, I talked about how I'm surprised no one else is talking about how similar Adrien's father and Hawkmoth are. And I think it's a mistake on the writer's part to introduce his father Gabriel so soon into the series. If they'd waited until later and made him a bit more mysterious, most people would still be in the dark over the true identity of Hawkmoth. But now, combine their shared voice actors and similar facial structures, and it's not going to be much of a reveal. Unless somehow it turns out Adrien's father has also been evilized. Dun dun dun! That's honestly the only twist that I'll accept at this point. But that's probably one of my more serious gripes about Miraculous Ladybug. Everything else is either part of the show's charm, i.e. silly villains, or excusable considering how early we are in the series, i.e. the lack of depth of Chloe's character. But that's all I've got to say about this episode. We did get to see more parkour action from Ladybug, makes sense considering the French origins of parkour, which was really cool to see in motion, so that's always a plus. I think the series is going to get even better with each new episode, if I can be so bold. If you aren't watching Miraculous Ladybug, then please, stop watching this review, although it's almost over anyways, and go watch it. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please consider leaving a quick like or a comment behind. Plus, consider subscribing for more Cartoon Hangout reviews and discussion videos. Take care.